Morning, everyone. Hello, and welcome back to the second day of IAMAI's first edition of Digital Transformation Summit. Without further ado, let me welcome Mr. M.R. Rangaswami, Managing Director, Sandhill Group, for a keynote address. Dear audience, M.R. Rangaswami is an entrepreneur, investor, corporate eco-strategy expert, community builder, and philanthropist. Recognized as a software business expert, he participated in the rapid expansion of the Silicon Valley software industry during his tenure as an executive at both large and small software companies. In 1997, he co-founded Sandhill Group, one of the earliest angel investment firms, and was profiled on the first page of the Wall Street Journal. He was named to the firm's Midas list of investors and also recognized by CRN as one of the top 25 technology executives. He also hosts the enterprise retreat for the top 100 leaders in technology. He is an angel investor in over 100 companies. Welcome once again, sir. It is our sheer pleasure to have you with us today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for those kind words, and thank you for welcoming me. Hello, everyone. I just want to start by saying our heart goes out to India in these difficult times. I know it's very tough for everyone in India, and we at Indiaspora, which is a nonprofit that I started 9 years ago on behalf of our Indiaspora community, the greater Indian American community as well. I want to wish you a safe recovery from the pandemic, and we are doing everything we can on our side with the US government and with our own donations and contributions and of equipment to come to India and to take care of our brothers and sisters, our family and our friends, and all of you in India. So I want to start with that note before I get into my keynote. So what is the business at hand? What has happened in the past year of the pandemic? Let me start with that backdrop. So this is where the digital journey that we all started took on more speed, took on an acceleration, right? If you remember, March of 2020 was when the pandemic was made into a crisis. Government started putting in rules and regulations, people started paying attention, and we had to change everything we virtually did. If you recall, at that time in March of 2020, everything shut down. Malls were shut down, stores and offices were shut down. And we all had to figure out a way to make things happen, to lead our lives. And this is what happened at that time was digitization was upon us in full force. And like Satya Nadella mentioned, what would have taken Microsoft 2 years, they did in 2 months. And this happened to virtually every company, but it also happened to every individual in the world, right? You can look at every activity we did. If we had to, as a consumer, buy things, we couldn't go to stores. So what did we do? We went to the internet. We went to e-commerce. We got all our things in the virtual world, and they were delivered to us in a contactless way, in a touchless way. So the whole cycle started in March of 2020. The same thing, what happened to you in personal life also happened in your companies, if you recall. We couldn't go to the offices. So everybody had to suddenly work from home, manage your calendar, manage your productivity, manage your team, do everything to support your customer or consumer. Everything was done from people's homes. And in India, especially, these were difficult because a lot of people live with extended families. They don't have a home office. How do you conduct your business when your children are not going to school and you have parents at home and you still have to work 8 or 10 hours a day? These were the tough times that happened upon all of us in the world a year ago. It really started moving us all to digital. So let's look at certain industries and how industries adopted this new normal, if you will, the COVID normal. And then we'll get to the new normal in a few minutes. But the COVID normal situation was anything and everything was done in a virtual world. Either you use the internet or you use products like Zoom, or we are on WebEx, These were the products we used to communicate and conduct business as we know it, right? So if you were a retailer a year ago, the only way you could survive was to have a website, a digital presence, but you also had to have the logistics and the delivery capabilities to deliver products to your consumers and your customers, right? If you were in the healthcare industry, how did you manage your patients as doctors, or how did hospitals manage a lot of their activities? You had to go online, you had to go to video, you had to do so many new things that were never done before to prevent people from coming to the hospital unless it was a dire emergency. This also had a fallout because if you didn't have COVID, you were afraid to go to the hospital, or the doctors didn't want to see you either. So this pushed off a lot of patients who had other diseases and other problems. It kept them from not going in, and it has caused aggravations and problems which will be with us for years to come. Same thing, if you look at manufacturing industries, you still had to go into work, but you had to have protection and safety. Work might get stopped if a coworker fell sick. You had to replace people. So again, once again, you found yourself, doing jugad, except we all did jugad around the world over the past, year or so. If you were in other industries as well, let's even look at fun things that we did. Sports, cricket had to go to another country for them to play. Cricket stadiums, even if they played locally, had no fans. And so that was the other thing that happened, was how does digital enhance the experience of even things like sporting events, right? So many, many, many of these things you have dealt with and you have felt and experienced yourself in the past year. So what I would like to do now is to really look and project out and put forth some ideas for you in the future. So there was the pre-COVID world where we did activities in a very much of a physical manner. The COVID world converted us to a digital virtual world. So now we have to ask ourselves, what happens in the post-COVID environment? For example, how do consumers operate? How do businesses operate? What happens to all of us as we move forward as society, right? One thing, do consumers go back to malls? That's a fair question. Do patients go back to hospitals? Do students go back to schools? All I know is there's going to be a new normal and we're all going to work this together, but I want to lay out a few ideas. All I can say is things are going to be different. We're not going to go back to the past, and there's going to be some kind of hybrid environment that is the future. So what does this mean to all of you who are looking at digital? You're looking at digital opportunities, whether you are companies or consumers or distributors or manufacturers. What does this mean for every one of us? So maybe we can take industry by industry again and kind of paint some scenarios. For example, what happens in education? There are students in school and students in college and universities. The whole experience, as you know, for all of us who have gone through school and college and university, was the social interaction, the social network that we all had, that really we can look back today. And those are the friendships and the relationships we developed that stand us in good stead 10, 20, 30 years after high school and college. So if you think of college being or high school being a virtual experience, how does a student get that social connectivity? So I don't think that is going to happen. I think there's going to be some kind of a hybrid environment. Now, each college, each school, each country and society has to kind of figure out what that exact new normal is, right? So maybe there is school a few days, maybe it's supplemented by virtual programming. And You also then have the social connection with your friends, but you also do a lot of work in a virtual way, right? So again, you could foresee that in the education system, but maybe for some people, it all becomes virtual because now we're used to so many companies offering courses, offering university-like education, all in the virtual space, all for much lower cost. So one has to think and see if we pay more to go through the regular experience, or do we pay less and kind of take benefit of the virtual experience with some shortcomings? Or maybe there are new products that bring the virtual world together in a social way for students to interact, communicate, and so forth, that makes life and experience a whole lot better. So, what happens to retailers? This is a big question as we move forward. As you know, India was an economy that was creating more and more malls, whereas in the United States over the past decade, malls were shrinking, malls were closing. India was one of the few countries everybody looked at where malls and retail outlets were increasing day by day, city by city, right? Now we have to ask what is going to happen to that model of retail experience? Would retailers go to much more of a virtual model, especially now with 5G rolling out, with everybody in India having smartphones? Do we really need that experience to go to a crowded mall, to spend time in a bus or the metro or in your car, going to the mall, parking, and wasting so much time? You may prefer to have virtual reality and augmented reality, AR and VR, a beautiful experience in 5G at your home on a big screen where you could look at products, you could actually wear your clothes, you could test everything out, and then with the press of a button, you could order the products. And the nice thing is, if you didn't like the product, you could send it back. So a lot of people may opt for a brand new experience because of the COVID environment that we've all faced in the past 15 months almost now. This could become the new normal in some industries, right? So you look at manufacturing, again, manufacturing was going down the road of high automation. COVID has only speeded that up as well, right? Factories are being equipped with IoT devices and sensors so you can spot machine breakdowns, you can do preventative maintenance. Robots are replacing a lot of these functions as well. So even in the future, when new factories open up in India, there may be far fewer people, a lot more digital, right? And this keeps people safer, it keeps everybody connected, but that's going to be possibly the new reality in India as well. So you look at healthcare, that's the other big industry. Now, I can foresee a future in India because one of the things that COVID has brought upon India, it has brought a lot of things under the microscope. What we hear is that the government spends 1.2% of the GDP on healthcare infrastructure. The US, on the other hand, spends literally 20% on healthcare. Now, I'm not advocating India spend 20% because I believe in the US, it's highly an inefficient model where we can easily cut a third to half the cost. But I also tell you that the Indian model is too frugal. It doesn't have the support mechanisms. It doesn't have the features and technologies that one could use today. You can make the comparison, much like India left the landline model and went to the cell phone model. And this is happening all over India in so many ways. The cell phone is becoming your device that does e-commerce, does payments, that it does banking, it does literally everything you want today, right? So think of the new normal with that in mind in healthcare. So you could envision doing things even efficiently in India. Maybe the 1.2% doesn't need to get to 20% or anything close to that. But even a few percentage point increases, you could envision a health center in every village in India with 5G, with a few devices, maybe with an ASHA worker or a nurse there. But then you're connected to a doctor real time in your state. So they speak the same language, they know your culture, they know your traditions, and so forth, and can assess you and diagnose you in a very different way than today, right? And your vital statistics and temperature and blood pressure, all could be done locally, either through devices or through a nurse, and all that can be transmitted to the doctor. He or she can examine you in privacy using video calls. And this would prevent maybe 75, 80% of diagnoses from not coming into a city or not coming into a hospital at all, and being done at very low cost and high productivity for the doctors as well. And the nurses can take care of another few percentage points. And so very few people may ultimately have to go into a physical facility. So I can see huge changes happening as we move forward with healthcare, which is a timely topic for all of us here to discuss. So these are some of the things I want to lay upon you as I kind of bring this to a close. I thought I would take about 20 minutes, and I'm looking at my clock. I think I have a couple more minutes to finish up, but please do send your questions. And I want to really make the rest of this session an interactive session with all of you. So when you look at the COVID world that we lived in today or living in today, we thought 2020 would be a COVID year. 2021, most economies we thought we would come out of COVID. But now looking at what is happening in India, India is certainly going to be still in the COVID world in 2021. So India really would be looking ahead at 2022 as the first year of post-COVID, the new post-COVID normal. And so that's where we're headed. And I think at this point, I'm going to close my talking and really look forward to your questions. And I think we have a few coming up here. So let me take a look at the first one. It says, given labor mobility will increase significantly, given people have realized they can work virtually, do you see reverse migration happening from America to India? Great question. So obviously there's been a brain drain with people leaving India to come to the US and working in the US, right? And so the question is, will some of these people be able to move back to India and really do all their work from India and still kind of serve the United States? I think this is a tough one because of the time difference. And many of you who are in the call center business and other businesses like that know that you have to do night shifts and so on and so forth. So this could be a little bit of a tricky problem. Also, I can tell you what is happening here. I don't know if you saw the Google announcement today, where they really are looking to bring back most of their workers into the office with some flexibility being given to them. I think they're giving them something like 20% flexibility to kind of work at home, or another 20% flexibility, I think, to work from another office of their choice. So maybe in some of those large companies where they give you a choice, maybe some people in the US could opt for the Google office or the Facebook office in India or the Amazon office in India if that works out. And it's quite possible that some of the time could be spent there, but I don't think we have yet figured out the time zone differences in the world. So I think till we figure out some way of paralleling different time zones, I think that one is going to be a little bit of a challenge. Another question from the audience, from an investor perspective, what is your opinion of the crypto boom? So I have to tell you this, I've been staying on the sidelines with the whole crypto movement. I had a friend call me 10 years ago or so, whenever it got started, and said, you got to buy this thing called Bitcoin. I never did it. I still don't own any Bitcoins. About 4 years ago, another smart venture investor was starting a new fund, and he said, you got to buy crypto. I didn't do that either. 3 years ago, another friend called and said, buy Bitcoin, and it was $4,800 at that time. And he said, take 1% of the money you got and put it in. That way you lose it, you won't even know. If you make money, it's a good thing to use for a vacation or a holiday. I didn't do that either. So only recently, as an angel investor, I have invested in some crypto startups. That is the extent of what I've kind of, put my feet into to get wet. But I'm not really a big crypto guy. And I'm not, I would say, not really a skeptic. but I'm not a booster either. I'm kind of a stay and wait. And so what they say in our business is, if you don't want to invest in gold mining, if gold was the commodity like crypto, if you don't want to buy gold or buy crypto, invest in companies that make picks and shovels and so forth, so that at least you're making money in a different way, but addressing that industry. And that's kind of what my take is on crypto at this point. I still feel it's a store of currency. It's not a currency, but it's a store of wealth, much like gold. Very little of it is actually being used, even though Tesla and these companies say they take Bitcoin. I don't think Elon Musk has come out and said how many Tesla cars have been bought using Bitcoin yet. Next question. Do you feel digital may replace employment with automation? Uh, Unfortunately, I'm a believer that digital and automation is going to replace a lot of tasks for both blue collar factory workers, but also white collar office workers. Things like, remote process automation, robotic process automation, and all these things, RPA, and those kind of things in the white collar space. Many new pieces of software looking at productivity of employees, helping improve that. So many things are upon us in the office space. I think there is a lot of automation happening there. And then, of course, in factories, there's no question about it. The bright spot in all this is there are new jobs being created in these spaces to manage activities, to manage robots, to repair robots, to go replace sensors, to do these kind of things. So there are many new jobs coming upon us. But the key thing for anyone who is an office worker or a factory worker is they have to have the ability in the future that every 10 years you're going to retrain yourself. I think technology is moving faster and faster and faster. So all of us in the tech industry or any industry have to be prepared that every 10 years you're going to retrain yourself and do something completely different. Next question from the audience. Uh, uh, in a country where foundational skills in literacy and math has not been achieved, how feasible is digital transition? Would universal basic income be inevitable? I have to tell you this. I'm a fan of universal basic income that says everyone gets some money to lead a decent life, food, clothing, and a roof upon your head. I don't know what that amount would be. It might be by city or by state or by country, but I think that is something we all need to look at as human beings, because I think the wealth gap, whether it's the US or India, is only increasing every day, every day. And so I think countries need to really look at ways not to give people, entitlements or to give them money. They're not beggars. We're just making sure everybody is a human being and the basic needs have to become human rights. That's just my personal opinion on this one. Let's see, question number 5 from the audience. With rapid conversion to digitization, how do you foresee the IT industry post-pandemic? Again, all of you in the IT industry in India have been working from home. Same thing in the US, right? So what has happened during this? I've talked to lots of CEOs in the tech space, really got a lot of inside information. And this is to distill it down. I've talked to, I think, at least 50 CEOs of tech companies. And to distill down what they're seeing is, one, productivity increased by an insane amount in tech companies. Insane amount. You know why? Because one, people work from home. They didn't have the commute time. Two, they were not chit-chatting next to the coffee machine or the cafeteria. And so all these things added up to huge increase in productivity. That what was the downside to all this stuff? Huge increase in burnout. A lot of people are having mental health issues because, like I said early on in my presentation, that people are working from home, extended family, father, mother staying at home, kids staying at home. The pressure is upon a lot of people, and there's a lot of mental health issues that are being built up. And I know this is something that is hard for all of us to express to our colleagues or to our managers, but that is reality today. And so I would really encourage every one of you, if you're management, to really pay attention to your workers' mental health. If you're an employee, to really make people aware of the needs that you might have. This is a very tough situation. And so I think the price of remote work is really the mental health of people and how they deal with family and so forth. I think it's an issue we still haven't addressed in the United States or India. I think we're still figuring it out. How do we take care of people? How do they feel rewarded? How do they feel welcome? Imagine this: you're a new employee in the past year. You joined a company, you've never met anyone. I really can't fathom the what this person goes through in to become part of this corporate family. So I think this is a big issue that we haven't solved yet. Another question from the audience. Uh, Indian SaaS companies have been flourishing globally. In what other spaces do you see Indians having a comparative advantage? Again, SaaS has been great for India. And I know Chennai, for example, is now building itself as the SaaS capital. And so lots of companies like Freshworks and Zoho and Unifor, you can name so many companies that have grown successfully in India. Innovacer. I mean, many of these companies have come to the US. They've become unicorns. They're flourishing. And they all are servicing a global market. So I really believe, and I'm very bullish on Indian companies really becoming successful SaaS companies. Tremendous opportunities across the board, whether you're looking at horizontal products that would serve multiple countries and multiple industries, or very specific vertical products, whether you're releasing a healthcare product, a retail product, an aerospace and defense product, an automotive product. So I see huge opportunities over the next decade for anything SaaS, horizontal, vertical, anything that can improve productivity, improve efficiency, reduce friction, reduce touch points. So tremendous, tremendous opportunities for Indian companies. Next question, I think, is universal basic income create a moral hazard problem? Is it a disincentive to work? I think, again, it depends on the amount of money that is universally available to everyone, right? So I think you have to decide that, like I said, city by city, or even in India, village by village. You give them enough for the bare basics. It's not for you to go buy a bottle of booze, okay? That's not going to be part of universal basic income. It's got to really be the amount of money you give people for the basic human rights, what I call food, shelter, clothing. And so I think that level will determine what people do. But I think most human beings have self-esteem, I would say, where they really want to work. So I think my host is here. So I think I will stop at this point. I hope you really enjoyed my session. I hope you you got some thought-provoking ideas from me. And I just want to wish you all the best with this conference. And most of all, please stay safe. Our prayers and thoughts are with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was really very, very interesting listening to you. I was just on the background. It was really very insightful, and it was wonderful. Thank you to our partners, title partner Accenture, track partner Automation Anywhere, cloud communication partner Root Mobile, bronze partner Tata Teleservices, and knowledge partner PwC. Please stay tuned for amazing sessions lined up for you during this day. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye, sir.